4. My name is Dorothy Mae Henderson, and I'm 63 years old. And what happened in my kitchen that Thursday evening in March still makes my hands shake when I think about it. I was standing there watching smoke pour from my stove while my son Marcus, my baby boy who I raised alone after his daddy passed, stood between me and the phone, laughing like it was some kind of joke. But before I tell you how I ended up testifying against my own child in court, let me ask you something. Where are you watching from today? Detroit? Atlanta? Memphis? Comment below and let me know, because I need to know I'm not alone in this. I should have seen it coming when Shanice first started coming around 4 years ago. Lord knows the signs were there, clear as day. But when you're a mother, you see what you want to see in your children. Marcus was 38 then, working at the Ford plant, and I was so happy when he brought her to Sunday dinner. She was pretty, I'll give her that, with those long nails and designer purse, though I wondered how a medical assistant could afford Michael Kors. Mrs. Henderson, she'd said, sweet as honey. Marcus talks about you all the time. I should have noticed how her eyes traveled over my living room, calculating something I couldn't see yet. You see, I'd been living in that same house on Dexter Avenue for 37 years. It wasn't much. 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, kitchen that needed updating. But it was mine, free and clear. My husband Roy and I paid it off the year before the cancer took him. After he passed, I kept working my job at Detroit General, cleaning those hospital floors every night from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. because that's what you do. You keep going. The house was all I had to leave my children, Marcus and his sister Denise, and I guarded it like the treasure it was. The first sign something was wrong came about 6 months after Marcus and Shanice got married. I was coming home from my shift, feet aching, back screaming, counting the dollars in my envelope budget system, you know the kind, where you put cash for bills in different envelopes, when I noticed my water bill envelope was empty. Now, I may have been tired, but I knew I'd put $47 in there just 2 days before. Marcus had been over-fixing my back steps, said he needed to use the bathroom. When I asked him about it, casual-like, he said, "Mama, you probably moved it somewhere else. You've been working too hard." That's how it starts, you know. Little things that make you question yourself. Comment below if you've ever had someone make you feel crazy for noticing what you noticed, because that's exactly what they did to me for 3 years straight. The next few months, more money went missing. 20 here, 40 there. Nothing big enough to call the police over, but enough to hurt when you're choosing between blood pressure medication and keeping the lights on. I started hiding my envelopes in different places. Behind the flour container, inside old shoe boxes, even in the freezer wrapped in aluminum foil like leftover meatloaf. But somehow money still disappeared whenever they visited. Then came the bigger asks. "Mama," Marcus said one evening, Shanice hanging on his arm, "we're trying to buy a house. Could you co-sign the loan? Your credit's better than ours." When I said I needed to think about it, Shanice's face changed for just a second. Something cold flashed in her eyes before the smile came back. "Of course, Mrs. Henderson. Family should be careful about these things." I talked to my friend Loretta at church that Sunday. We were setting up for the after-service meal, laying out tablecloths in the fellowship hall when I mentioned it. Loretta stopped mid-fold and looked at me over her glasses. "Dorothy Mae, don't you sign nothing. My cousin did that for her son and lost her house when he stopped paying." That settled it for me. When I told Marcus no, he didn't speak to me for 2 weeks. Shanice, though, she started coming around more, always when Marcus was at work. "Mrs. Henderson," she'd say, sitting at my kitchen table, watching me cook greens for the church potluck. "Marcus is so stressed about this house situation. It's affecting his health. His blood pressure's up. You know heart problems run in your family." She'd pause, stirring sugar into her coffee. 3 spoonfuls, always 3. "I just worry about him is all. A man needs to provide for his family." "What would you have done?" Seriously, I'm asking. Because I held firm, even when she started crying, mascara running down her cheeks, talking about the baby they wanted to have and how they needed a safe place to raise it. I held firm even when Marcus started showing up looking tired, talking about double shifts and overtime just to save for a down payment. I knew manipulation when I saw it, but knowing and not hurting for your child are two different things. The holidays came and went, tension thick as molasses, at every family dinner. Denise noticed it too. "Mama," she said, helping me wash dishes after Thanksgiving, "something's off with Marcus, and that wife of his keeps asking about your insurance policies." That's when I started paying real attention. See, I had a life insurance policy, nothing fancy, just enough to bury me proper and leave a little something behind, and a homeowner's policy Roy had set up years ago. Shanice had been asking lots of questions about coverage, deductibles, claims processes, things that weren't her business. By February, things escalated. I came home from church one Wednesday night to find my back door jimmied open. Nothing looked missing at first, but when I checked my important papers box, the one I kept in my bedroom closet with birth certificates and such, several documents were gone. Insurance papers, the deed to the house, bank statements. I called Marcus right away, and he came over with Shanice. "Mama, you probably misplaced them," he said, not even looking me in the car. You've been under stress with all that overtime." That's when I knew my son was gone, replaced by someone I didn't recognize. The boy I raised, who used to help old Mrs. Johnson carry her groceries, who cried when his goldfish died, who promised me at Roy's funeral that he'd always take care of me. That boy was gone. What stood in my kitchen was a stranger wearing my son's face. I went to the police the next morning. The officer, a young black woman named Detective Williams, listened to everything. "Mrs. Henderson," she said gently, "without proof of forced entry or evidence of who took the documents, there's not much we can do, but I suggest you change your locks and maybe install some security cameras." She slipped me a business card. "This company's reasonable. Tell them I sent you." That decision saved my life. I had them installed the next week. Tiny things you could barely see, one in the living room, one in the kitchen, one covering the back door. Cost me 3 months of scrimping on groceries, but something in my spirit said I needed them. The technician, a brother named Jerome, showed me how to check the footage on my phone. "It stores everything in the cloud for 30 days, he explained. "Even if someone destroys the cameras, you'll still have the evidence." 2 weeks later, I was at my neighbor Mrs. Chen's house, borrowing some vanilla extract for a pound cake when I got an alert on my phone. Motion detected in my kitchen. It was 2 p.m. on a Thursday. I should have been at work, but I'd taken a sick day for a doctor's appointment that got canceled. I opened the app and saw Shanice in my kitchen, going through my drawers. Marcus was there too, keeping watch by the window. I sat in Mrs. Chen's living room, shaking, watching them search my house on that little screen. They found my new hiding spot for the insurance papers, inside an old photo album, and I watched Shanice take pictures of every page with her phone. Then she did something that made my blood run cold. She turned on my stove, all 4 burners, and placed dish towels near the flames. Not touching, but close enough that one good draft would cause a catastrophe. "Mrs. Chen," I said, my voice steadier than I felt, "please call 911. Tell them someone's in my house trying to start a fire." Then I called Detective Williams directly. She remembered me, said she'd send units immediately. I stayed at Mrs. Chen's, watching through the app as Shanice and Marcus sat in my living room, waiting. They'd moved to the couch, Marcus checking his watch every few minutes. I heard sirens in the distance, getting closer, and watched their faces change from confident to confused to panicked as police cars pulled up outside. The footage showed everything that happened next. The police knocking, Marcus trying to play it cool, saying they were just visiting his mother. Shanice claiming I'd asked them to check on the stove because I'd been forgetful lately. Detective Williams. Arriving, asking to see their phones. The way Shanice's face crumbled when the detective said they had video evidence. Marcus trying to run out the back door, only to find more officers waiting. But here's the part that broke what was left of my heart. When Detective Williams showed them the footage on her tablet, Marcus looked straight at the camera, straight at me, really, and said, "That old woman's house is worth more than she'll ever be. We were just trying to get what's ours, what's theirs, like I was already dead, like those 30 years of working nights, of choosing between my medicine and their school supplies, of walking to work in Detroit winters to save bus fare for their field trips. Like none of that mattered. The trial was the hardest thing I've ever done, and I've done some hard things in my 63 years. Sitting in that courtroom, watching my baby boy in an orange jumpsuit and shackles, testifying against him while my church family sat behind me for support. It was like attending his funeral while he was still alive. Shanice's family was there too, her mother calling me everything but a child of God during breaks, saying I was destroying their lives over a misunderstanding. The prosecutor laid it all out methodically. The pattern of theft, documented by bank records, the insurance fraud attempt, captured on video, the text messages between Marcus and Shanice, recovered from their phones, planning everything. "Once we get the insurance money from the fire," Shanice had written, "we can pay cash for the new house and have enough left over for a year." Marcus had replied, "Just make sure it looks like an accident. Mama's been leaving the stove on lately anyway, according to what we'll tell them." They'd been telling people I was getting senile for months, laying groundwork for their story. Shanice had even called Adult Protective Services, claiming I was a danger to myself. Thank God the social worker who came out saw through it, wrote in her report that I was sharp as a tack and my house was well maintained. That report became evidence too. When it came time for me to testify, I wore my best church dress, the navy blue one with the little flowers that Roy bought me for our last anniversary. I sat in that witness chair, hand on the Bible, and told the truth, all of it. How I'd noticed the missing money, how they'd gaslit me into doubting myself, how I'd watched them try to burn down the only thing I had to my name. When Marcus's lawyer tried to make it seem like I was confused, mistaken, maybe holding a grudge about the loan I wouldn't co-sign, I looked him dead in the eye and said, "Sir, I may be old, but I'm not foolish, and I have receipts." The jury deliberated for 3 hours. 3 hours that felt like 3 years. When they came back with guilty verdicts on all counts, attempted arson, insurance fraud, elder abuse, attempted murder for blocking me from calling for help while trying to start a fire, I didn't feel victorious. I felt empty. Shanice got 18 years. Marcus got 15. The attempted murder charge is what did it, the prosecutor said, preventing someone from calling for help during a life-threatening situation they created. That's attempted murder in Michigan. After the sentencing, Marcus asked to speak to me. His lawyer said he wanted to apologize. I went to that little room, sat across from him with glass between us, and picked up the phone. "Mama," he started, and for a second he sounded like my boy again. "I'm sorry you had to see all that. Not sorry for doing it. You understand? Sorry I had to see it." I set that phone down gently, stood up with my dignity intact, and walked out. That was 6 months ago. I haven't been back. The house is quiet now, too quiet sometimes. Denise comes by every Sunday after church, brings her kids. We cook together, making the recipes my mama taught me, cornbread from scratch, greens with smoked turkey instead of ham hocks now because of my blood pressure, sweet potato pie for special occasions. The kids do their homework at the same kitchen table where Marcus used to do his, back when he was still mine. I've joined a support group at the community center for elderly folks who've been victimized by family members. You'd be surprised how common it is. Or maybe you wouldn't. Maybe you're watching this because it happened to you too. There's Miss Ruby, whose grandson drained her savings account. Mr. Frank, whose daughter tried to get him declared incompetent to steal his pension. Mrs. Nguyen, whose son-in-law forged her signature on a reverse mortgage. We meet every Tuesday, share our stories, share our resources. I tell them about the cameras, about keeping evidence, about trusting that feeling in your gut when something's not right. I've been working with Detective Williams too, speaking at senior centers about the warning signs, the gradual isolation from friends, the missing documents, the gaslighting about memory problems, the sudden interest in insurance policies and property values. The hardest part, I tell them, is accepting that someone you love can betray you. But your safety matters more than their feelings. Your life matters more than their greed. Sometimes I walk past Marcus's old room, still set up like when he was in high school, with his football trophies and honor roll certificates. I wonder where I went wrong. Was it working too much? Not being home enough? Was it giving him too much? Not teaching him to struggle and appreciate? Or was it Shanice's influence, poisoning something that was already weak? I'll never know, and maybe that's for the best. The why doesn't change the what. The church has been my rock through all this. Pastor Johnson says forgiveness is for my healing, not their absolution. I'm working on it. Some days I get close, especially when I remember Marcus as a baby, how he'd grab my finger with his whole tiny fist and not let go. Other days, when my back aches from all those years of mopping floors to keep him fed and clothed, when I think about him sitting on my couch waiting for my house to burn down, forgiveness feels like a foreign language I'll never learn. I've changed all the locks again, upgraded the security system. The insurance company, once they saw the evidence from the trial, actually increased my coverage and decreased my premium. Mrs. Henderson, the agent said, "You're the most responsible client we have." If only she knew how much that responsibility cost me. Last week, I got a letter from Marcus. I recognized his handwriting on the envelope, same as when he used to write me Mother's Day cards. I haven't opened it. It sits in my Bible, pressed between Psalms and Proverbs, waiting for when I'm ready. Maybe that'll be never. Maybe that'll be tomorrow. Healing doesn't follow a schedule. What I want you to know, if you're watching this and going through something similar, is that you're not crazy. If money's missing, you're not forgetful. If important papers disappear, you're not careless. If your gut says something's wrong, something's wrong. Don't let anyone, not even your own blood, make you doubt what you know to be true. Install those cameras if you can. Keep copies of important documents somewhere safe, maybe a bank deposit box. Tell someone you trust what's happening. Document everything. Dates, times, what was said, what was taken. And please, please don't blame yourself. I spent months wondering what I did to deserve this, what I could have done differently. But Pastor Johnson reminded me that even Jesus was betrayed by someone close to him. Sometimes people choose greed over love, lies over loyalty. That's on them, not on you. The other day, I was at the grocery store counting out exact change for my items. Old habits die hard. When the young cashier said, "Ma'am, take your time." She had kind eyes, reminded me of Marcus when he was young, before life and choices changed him. I wanted to tell her to stay kind, to stay honest, to remember that money isn't worth more than people. Instead, I just said, "Thank you, baby," and meant it. My story went public after the trial. Reporters were interested in the attempted murder charge, the video evidence, the mother testifying against her son Angle. I've had strangers recognize me at the bus stop, some judging me for turning in my own child, others thanking me for being brave. I'm not brave, though. I'm just a mother who had to choose between enabling evil and standing for truth. That's not brave. That's necessary. Shanice's mother still calls sometimes, leaves voicemails about how I've ruined their lives, how I should have just given them the money they needed, how family's supposed to protect family. I don't listen to them anymore. Just delete them. Family is supposed to protect family. She's right about that. But protection doesn't mean enabling harm. It doesn't mean letting someone destroy themselves and you in the process. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is say no. Sometimes the most protective thing you can do is call the police. I think about the fire that almost was, how different the story could have ended. If I hadn't been sick that day, if I hadn't installed those cameras, if Mrs. Chen hadn't been home to call 911, I could have come home to ashes, or worse, been in the house when they set their plan in motion. The prosecutor said they were planning to do it when I was sleeping, make it look like I left something on the stove and didn't wake up in time. My son, the child I carried for 9 months, whose fever I sat up with, whose tears I dried, was planning to let me burn for money, but I'm still here, still in my house on Dexter Avenue, still working at the hospital, though I'm down to part-time now, still cooking for church potlucks, still living. That's my revenge, if you can call it that. Still living, still standing, still telling the truth. They took my son from me long before the prison did, but they didn't take my life, my home, or my dignity. If you're going through this, if someone you love is hurting you, using you, threatening you, please reach out for help. Call Adult Protective Services. Talk to the police. Install cameras if you can. Tell someone at church, at the senior center, at the doctor's office. You're not alone, and you don't have to handle this by yourself. There are people who will believe you, who will help you, who will stand with you even when standing feels impossible. My name is Dorothy Mae Henderson. I'm 63 years old, and I survived my son's betrayal. You can survive too. The truth really does come to light, even when that light shows you things you never wanted to see, even when that truth cost you everything you thought you had. Because what you gain, safety, peace, the knowledge that you stood up for yourself, is worth more than living in fear, more than enabling evil, more than keeping a secret that could kill you. If this story touched your heart or helped you in any way, please like and share it with someone who might need to hear it. And subscribe to hear more stories of triumph over betrayal, because you're not alone in this journey.